So if you are HIV positive, what does that tell you? Will you die of AIDS? No doctor can say with scientific certainty. So here we are in 1993 with the assumption being that HIV causes AIDS. And you're saying that HIV cannot be seen to destroy the immune system, that it's not present in all cases, and that there's no reason to believe that wiping out HIV is going to wipe out AIDS.
That's right.
Does HIV cause AIDS, or is it just along for the ride? Here are some other anomalies. HIV is nothing new. In fact, HIV has been around for decades without causing an epidemic. You can infect animals with HIV, but you can't produce AIDS in animals with HIV. In other diseases, scientists have been able to give a virus to an animal and watch it progress to the full disease. It was expected that female prostitutes would kick off a heterosexual epidemic in the United States. In fact, studies show that they have a puzzling resistance to HIV and AIDS. Prostitutes almost never get HIV infections unless they also use drugs. And you can find people with broken down immune systems vulnerable to disease who have characteristics similar to AIDS patients, but who have no HIV. How does the man responsible for the war on AIDS respond to anomalies like this? In a recent issue of the New England Journal of Medicine, Anthony Fauci says a rash of recently reported AIDS-like cases are simply not AIDS. Anomalies generate lots of articles. Nonetheless, the research follows HIV.
They still don't know how this virus works inside our bodies. They still don't know how this disease progresses and what really triggers the progression. They still don't know if the virus could be hiding someplace else. Its major home might not even be in the blood at all.
The most persistent critics of federal AIDS research have always been the people with the disease. Larry Kramer wrote the off-Broadway play The Destiny of Me and is the founder of the aggressive AIDS advocacy group ACT UP. Kramer has his own questions. He has been HIV positive for more than a decade.
It means that I don't know why I'm alive. I have been infected probably since 1978. Everyone that I know who was infected in 1978 has long since died.
Larry Kramer's question is, why am I not sick?
My answer to Larry, as I've told him personally, is that there is a long process that it takes for the immune system to go down. And people are very, very different. Some people have a response to the virus that it is very rapid that they get sick. Some people take a longer period of time.
There are lots of so-called long-term survivors. They're not very popular in the scientific literature because that argues against the view that HIV is the cause of AIDS.
Professor Peter Duesberg is about as far away from Anthony Fauci and the AIDS establishment as you can get. Though a pioneering virologist at the University of California, Berkeley, he is an extremely controversial figure. He is one of the few people who insist that HIV has nothing to do with AIDS. If I were to dump HIV virus in your cup there and you were to drink it, are you saying that there's no
problem to your health? There would be no risk. I would drink it all afternoon.
How can you say that?
Because HIV, there's no proof, of course, that HIV causes AIDS. In addition, I am familiar with retroviruses, how they behave and what they do, and on those counts, I'm confident enough that HIV, no matter how, couldn't possibly cause AIDS.
For all these years, we try to explain the entire disease process is due to HIV, a single virus. But the AIDS is apparently much more complex than the single viral infection.
Dr. Shai-Ching Lo discovered that the AIDS research establishment has a problem with complexity. He's a scientist at the Armed Forces Institute of Pathology. Lo also found out that if you look for something besides HIV in AIDS patients, you can begin to explain some of the anomalies. Lo found a bacteria-like substance called mycoplasma in AIDS patients and injected it into healthy animals. Remember, scientists who infect animals with HIV can't give them AIDS, but when Lo injected the mycoplasma in monkeys, all of them died. For years, Lo's animal results sat in the lab, while well-funded researchers chased HIV across petri dishes and around test tubes. Lo believed that because he was not studying HIV, the AIDS research establishment wasn't interested. It's only recently that Dr. Lo has convinced the National Institutes of Health to give his project any money at all.
We cannot get enough finding support to do it. That can be very frustrating, certainly.
I've had people tell me bluntly that I agree totally with your viewpoint that there are probably other things involved, that HIV can't cause AIDS by itself, that maybe you can get AIDS in the absence of HIV, but I'm not going to risk my $1 million of funding by saying that.
People call you and say, I have a grant to look at something which you and I both agree is silly, but I'm not going to say it.
That's, to put it bluntly, a good summary, yes.
Have you lost funding because of your views?
Yes, I did, yeah. My funding was not renewed. But it is a growing number of people who are asking questions. And I think that is just the tip of the iceberg. There are many more who have doubts that I know of, who said, I can't afford to speak up now because my research camps depend on HIV. If I'm joining you, my grant will be terminated just like yours.
Ratio of funding to behavior of HIV virus versus these other
Certainly,
factors?
the amount of funding to HIV virus is clearly greater than the funding going into those other areas for very logical reasons. And the logical reason is that if you don't have the virus, you don't get sick.
The argument is essentially that because the virus is there, I assume it has done it. It's circumstantial evidence. It's no proof, it's circumstantial evidence.
By chasing HIV, do Anthony Fauci and the government have too many of their eggs in one basket? Currently, of the almost $2 billion spent by the National Institutes of Health on AIDS research, only a very small percentage is devoted to studies on the role of other factors besides HIV. The amount of funding for research that says HIV has nothing to do with AIDS is zero. So well over $4 billion spent, and you're saying that the culprit that they've come up with is a virus that doesn't hurt any cells, that stays most of the time asleep in the body, that when it kills, supposedly, you can't find it.
That's correct, yes. Well, see...
Is there something I'm missing here?
No, you got it very well. See, it's the hallmark of a poorly framed or grounded hypothesis that it doesn't produce any results. And that's what you're seeing here.
The hypothesis may not produce results, but questioning it certainly does. We got quite a result when we mentioned Peter Duesberg to HIV proponent Dr. Robert Gallo.
Duesberg does his thing. That's a disservice to the country, what you're doing. This I will fight, and I will expose. And I'll call it deception of the worst order, and you'll be doing a disservice to the country. Yeah. So that's I don't want to talk to you anymore.
It's a law of nature, really. Big science can make very big mistakes. It's happened before. Why has there been a rush to judgment about AIDS? Nobel Prize winner Walter Gilbert can remember the time when cancer was supposed to have been caused by a virus.
It comes out of a disappointed war on cancer that was then almost turned as a political force into a war on HIV and AIDS. Because at least by pointing to a viral causation, you could almost attempt to promise people that science would do something about it in the short run.
Find the disease agent that causes cancer, and we'll wipe it out. Find HIV, and we'll stop AIDS. Well, in none of these cases has it worked. It's frightening. It means if there are other cofactors, if HIV isn't even necessary, we may go through 5 or 10 years of people like me or Peter Duesberg or Lowe or whoever it happens to be pounding away on doors before we even open the next one. And in the meantime, if HIV isn't the entire cause, people will be dying needlessly simply because nobody will listen.
There is a lot invested in this view. If it turns out to be not the case, what happens?
He's going to die. I'm expected to die anywhere. Oh, there's no question in my mind that this is the great medical tragedy of all times and the great government scandal of all time.
So what causes AIDS? The government would say HIV, and after 9 years of research, it is still promising the world a vaccine. But will that help people sick with AIDS today? No. The war on AIDS has maybe extended their lives by months at best. What about everyone else? If HIV is the cause of AIDS, a vaccine is the silver bullet. If it's not, then no vaccine, not even a $2 billion one, can protect you.